Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Shade in the 3-minute pool on ICC. Let's play a Benko Gambit against Shade if we're able. I remember playing this Grandmaster recently. I think in Bullet, though. I'll take this pawn. We'll play d6, and we're headed for a Benoni structure. Maybe I'll go bishop a6 just to try to trade the light square bishops. I kind of like this move now, to control his attempt to play e5. So now rook b1, maybe trying to go b3 and put the bishop on b2. Thinking maybe queen a5. This looks active. If I take, he takes with his knight. I can't play queen takes e1, unfortunately. Let's go here. Just try to trade a little bit. Now I can bring my queen into c3, but he might move his queen. I could play bishop c3. Let's do that. I'm just trying to go knight d7. Or maybe after bishop c3, he moves his rook, I take. Okay, he does this instead. Let's take. I think we can go here comfortably now. Very possible he'll trade and then put the knight on c4. Let's go knight e5. Is he going to swing the rook over to h3 and try to checkmate me? Doesn't seem like that will work out. I'd like to post a rook on b8 and then maybe initiate some trading on c4. He does this instead. So I can trade everything off, and he'll end up with a pawn here. I think that's okay for me. Let's do that. Takes with a pawn. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, we'll still do this and try to trade. Now I was thinking rook b4. So if he wants to swap, I'll end up with a pawn on b4, and maybe I can go queen c5 check. His king is kind of open. My next move will probably be rook fb8, if there's still a standoff on this file. Knight a3. So he's probably trying to enforce the c5 move. Let's bring the queen in. So if c5, I can take it. And if knight takes, rook c8 would pin him. If c5 take, queen takes, I have queen takes a2, attacking his rook. So that's the idea. Now I just win a pawn. Do I take right away, or do I trade and then take? If I trade and then take, he has knight a5. It's not quite as good. Okay, let's do this first. We'll trade, and his a2 pawn will be weak. Maybe rook b8 next move. He has that. Okay, so if I take, he's going rook a1. This is his point. Okay, let's do this. Not entirely sure. He can play rook c1 now, and I have to do this, and we're trading. He can go after this pawn, but I'm thinking f5 might be good. Let's go f5, just to break his pawns up. Time-wise, we're doing okay. We're a little bit low, but not bad for a 3-minute game. So I'd like to take and pop my bishop out to f5. Let's do that. He might take with the knight. If he takes with the king, maybe bishop e7. Let's do that. I don't know. Okay, let's go. I'll bring my king up. It's annoying I can't play e6. Try to break through with our pawns. It's f5 now, though. But if f5, I can play bishop a6 and maybe go for counterplay against his pawns. Let's pre-move that. This will be an interesting endgame. Yeah, if he moves his knight, now I get this move in. He has a check. Let's go h6. Now I'm going to move my king back. Really that? Okay, let's do this. And I'm going after the h3 pawn. Start bringing the king around. Knight e4, I'd expect. Nope. So I'm up a pawn. Going to get this in here.
Check.
This pawn is pretty unstoppable. If I can queen it in time.
Check. 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 Check.
I can win that.
Check.
All right, and I won on time, just barely. Okay, so cool endgame with knight versus bishop, and one in which I'm not sure. I felt like I was pressing, but around the time he got his king to d4, it was unclear. I don't know about his decision to play g4. That seems suspect. We'll have a look, though. Happy to have won a Blitz game, because I haven't been doing that well in the Blitz category of late. So he played queen c2. Sideline against the Benko Gambit, but it's fine. g6, e4, and we wind up with a Benoni pawn formation out of this. And black has not lost a pawn, but white has good piece play. In particular, the c4 square is very useful for them, as you saw. They often try to plant a knight on that square. So rook e1, I went bishop a6. Because in my experience, this trade benefits black, especially if the knight has access to b4. So knight d2, and I went here trying to control the e5 pawn advance. I wouldn't like him to play that. Queen a5. All right, I'm going to turn on the engine right about here. Yeah, knight b6 was another move I considered. An alternative way of getting at this, but it does allow e5. So I played this instead. We traded. Knight f3. Too bad the rook on e1's defended. I guess technically for that reason, like knight takes e5 is not a threat, but bishop d2 is the move that they're trying to follow with. So I went here. He played bishop d2. Rook e3 also comes to mind, yeah. But bishop d2, we traded. Knight d7. I think I'm a little bit worse, but it's not too bad at the moment. I thought he would trade on a6 and then maybe play f4. Trying to gain the c4 square for the knight without allowing an exchange. Like, say I play knight d7, he goes knight c4. Very likely I would try to seek to exchange that piece even further. Because I can't let that knight sit around on c4. It's too good of a piece. I'd love to get down to like a heavy piece endgame out of this. But he didn't do that. He played for control of c4 with his pawn rather than a piece. So pawn takes, that was surprising. So rook a b8 disputing the file. Now I got this rook b4 move in. I like this move. The computer also seems to think it's okay. And when he takes, it seems like I have decent counterplay now. I mean, I have the c file to work with. If he can't offload this pawn quickly with c5, it's liable to become a weakness. So I was thinking he might not want to do that. Like, I thought he might play a3. Does that fail tactically for some reason? Bishop takes c4. That's a nice move. Yeah, and if knight takes, I have queen e1 checkmate. And if queen takes, I can take his knight on d2. That's a nifty tactic. But I thought he would do something to try to avoid playing this. Maybe he saw a3, rook takes b3, followed by bishop takes c4, and he avoided it. But could he try a3, take, knight takes? Idea, take here, rook a1, with the attack on the bishop. He could, but I have this move, keeping the pressure, pinning him, also attacking c4, and still keep an eye on a3. Rook b8 is coming too. This looks good for me. I'm coordinating well now. So rook b4 gives us the needed counterplay. If we were just to I don't know, simply swap and he gains the b file, then I'm probably suffering here. So my bishop is not effective. So he took, we took the c pawn, knight b3. I think queen a3 is good because it stops him from playing c5 just due to take. And if knight takes, I was intending rook c8 with what looks to me like a mortal pin on the c file. So he played queen b2. And I would really prefer to trade queens and then take on c4. But he has a knight move like knight d2, I think I saw. Knight a5 also looks very good. Attacking the bishop and also regaining the pawn next move. I guess I could play rook c8. Idea here, here. But this could be similar to the game in that he has rook c2. I have to move my attacked bishop.
Check.
And then trade, and probably knight coming into c6. Yeah, attacking all of these weak pawns. Probably he'll play to win the b4 pawn. So I took on c4 straight away. Yeah, and black has an advantage in this ending. Knight d2 is a good resource. Again, annoying that I can't take this in view of rook a1 when I get my bishop trapped. So I played rook c8. Looks like this was accurate. Rook c1.
Check.
And we get to a bishop versus knight endgame where I have an extra pawn, but the value of it is reduced because this pawn's life expectancy is not very high. And if white can win that pawn and keep the center position stable, there's no reason to believe he's going to be worse. So that's why I sought to play f5 and break up the pawns. King e3, I took on e4. Very possible I didn't play this next phase of the game too accurately. I played here, trying to get in something with e6, but I wouldn't have done that in retrospect. I also thought about doing something like this. I don't know, just so if his knight ever comes here, I could play bishop b1 and win the pawn. But his king is very active. Yeah, the engine suggests king c3, attacking the bishop. It's not a simple task to win this. So king g7, according to the computer, is my best bet, just improving my king. It actually is suggesting a plan where I walk up like this, because he can't play g4 right now. Yeah, technical endgame. So king d4, I played king f7, knight c4. Very annoying that I can't play this move.
Check.
If knight takes d6 with the fork. So I played king f6. Yeah, and I criticized g4 a minute or two ago, and I stand by that. I don't think this move is very good. What to do instead? g3, just put a pawn on a dark square. I guess I would try infiltrating, but he can stop me so long as the knight is in range of the e3 square for a moment. I suppose black is still playing for a win even here. Because it takes a while. It's time-consuming for him to go win this pawn and then bring it up and maybe win this pawn. By that point, I might have knocked out his kingside pawns, and maybe I have some hopes for promoting my h-pawn. So king f6. He played g4. I played g5. I thought this was good to try to fix this on a white square. f5. Bishop a6. Yeah, so now if he takes, my plan is to go bishop e2 and start raiding these pawns. h3, bishop f1. Too many pawns on light squares that are indefensible. So he played knight d2. This was tricky, though. Actually, when I played bishop e2, I missed knight e4 check. In retrospect, I would have played h6 just to solidify the g-pawn, because I can bring my bishop in whenever I want. Yeah, because if he plays king e3, trying to stop bishop e2, then my king invades to e5. That's not good for him. Maybe he could do knight e4 here and then king e3, but I guess I have this move now. Weak pawns to attack. So bishop e2, h3, now h6. So does knight e4 yield him anything? King g7. If he takes here, I take g4. Again, this pawn is weak. He hasn't managed to win my a-pawn. It seems like knight e4 doesn't yield anything.
Check.
Now king f7. He went f6. The engine thinks I should play e5 check. Not a move I considered. With en passant, I take here. I think I kind of like my move if it's okay. Bishop f1. He takes, I take, and I keep d6 defended. Knight f2. And I started moving my king around. Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure how to win here. Because I'm still up a pawn, but it's a useless pawn for the moment. I need my king active. My ultimate goal is to try to work it around like this and up the board. And maybe put him in Zugzwang at some point with his knight needing to stay guarding the h3 pawn. But that does entail some risk, like I could easily lose my d6 pawn. What if he just hangs out in the center? Okay, maybe it's the case that his king doesn't have a good square to go to. Because, yeah, king e4 allows bishop c4. That's a good point. Going after the a pawn. You see the effect of the bishop versus the knight, and how easily the bishop is able to switch to different sides of the board, whereas the knight, once it's committed to one side of the board, really has to stay there. That's why they always say in endgames with pawns on both sides of the board, the bishop is better than the knight. It's a generalization, but a situation like this is illustrative of that piece of advice. What if he goes king c3? Is that what he did? Yeah, he did play king c3. Okay. And I started working my king up. Yeah, like roundabout here, he's basically in Zugzwang. If his king yields at all, I get access to the c5 square. And if his knight moves, I win h3. So maybe he needs to do something radical, like the engine is suggesting knight d1, take, knight e3, trying to control my bishop. Yeah, I guess my bishop has no squares. And then what do I have to do? Try to go all the way over here and try to play h5? And that's a very precise defense for him, knight d1. And he wasn't able to find it. Yeah, and once my king gets to invade on the king side, I have an extra d-pawn, and his king side pawns are getting knocked out. It's all over. I just had to make sure I didn't flag. So I'm very happy with this game. I had a big blunder in my Blitz game yesterday, and it was nice to be able to grind out an endgame against a strong player, grandmaster opponent. So I'm curious who Shade is, because I played this guy, and I was thinking it was another GM, Frozen Shade, but this Shade is an anonymous grandmaster. But hope you guys enjoyed that game. I'll be back tomorrow with another Blitz game. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.